Good evening. Thank you for joining us on New London Republicans, the party that's looking out for you. Tonight's show is hosted by me, Bill Vogel, chairman of the New London Republican Town Committee, and I guess we're going to get some more snow tomorrow. It doesn't seem like it'll ever end, but I guarantee you it will. Within a month, it'll probably be all gone, God willing, and maybe we'll be getting a little bit of spring. So we're hoping for that and expecting, the snow tomorrow. We'll get through that. We've got through all the other ones, so can't be too bad. One of the things I wanted to start off talking about was I watched the speech yesterday by Netanyahu at before the joint session of Congress, and boy, I was kind of embarrassed because our leader Barack Obama looks like, he just it's sort of like a kid against a professional. It's just Netanyahu did a fantastic job of doing the speech. He was conciliatory. He was grateful to be there, and but yet he made his points as clear as crystal. And it's the first time the Congress or the American people have really heard his side of the story. And was it ever clarion? It was unbelievable that we have the president and John Kerry negotiating this treaty, of which we know nothing from them, almost nothing, and then we have Netanyahu come and give a fantastic speech, laying it all out as clear as can be, and so now people can understand it. I would say that there's a real good chance that Obama's going to have one heck of a time getting that treaty through. He's trying to get it done by executive order so it doesn't go to Congress, but my guess is that Congress is going to get a piece of it, and he's going to have a hard time. He's going to have a hard time with it because it certainly sounds like a bad deal. If Netanyahu's even halfway correct, we're careening into a deal that can only lead to nuclear weapons for Iran. Basically what it does is it leaves the nuclear infrastructure in place in Iran, keeps the centrifuges going, keeps the enrichment going. Now, bear in mind, Iran's sitting on oil and natural gas. They don't need commercial nuclear power to generate electricity. The only thing that they could be possibly doing with enriching uranium or making plutonium would be to make a bomb, make nuclear weapons. And God knows that would be the worst thing that could happen to the world, with right in the middle of the Middle East, where you got a tinderbox anyway, you have Iran with a bomb. And then, of course, you're going to have everybody else in the surrounding area is going to say, well, if Iran can do it, why can't I? So Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, you name it, will all be starting their own nuclear weapons programs to try to protect themselves from crazy Iran. So, really bad. So anyway, the treaty leaves the centrifuges and the nuclear infrastructure in place, and it also puts a sunset on the treaty, where basically after a decade or shortly, like 10, 12, I don't know, maybe even 15 years, but something like 10 years, then all the requirements go bye-bye, and Iran is clear and free to go and make as many nuclear weapons as they want. So one of the things Netanyahu said is that this treaty is so bad that it puts Iran on a path to nuclear weapons. And remember, when we started out this process and the UN resolutions, everything was that there will be no enrichment by Iran of uranium. There'll be no production of plutonium. And here we are, allowing them to enrich, allowing them to maintain their infrastructure. And the best they can say is, well, we're gonna keep them from having a mad dash to a nuclear weapon. We're gonna make that a year, but it looks like it's more like 3 months. So it's really, really incredible. The whole thing was just embarrassing, because we come across our leaders, Obama and Kerry and Valerie Jarrett, all come across as weak, naive, and lacking courage. and where Netanyahu points out, he even points out to the extent that you don't have to accept this bad deal, and the alternative isn't going to war like Obama likes to say. The alternative is a better deal, and there's no reason why we can't negotiate a better deal with a combined sanctions plus the drop in oil prices. Iran's going to be really hurting, and so you know, so much more could be done. And you got Kerry over there. I actually thought, I didn't expect too much of Obama, because remember, Obama has no experience doing anything. He was a community organizer, and so you know, you got somebody there that really doesn't know too much. Valerie Jarrett appears almost to be an Iranian sympathizer. She's half Iranian, and she speaks Farsi, which is the Iranian language. So you know, you got her as the principal advisor. So I think she thinks she's going to pull off some great deal, no matter what. And so you know, a bad deal is better than no deal in her mind, and that's of course what's going on. Some of the things, this is an interesting one. This is the New York Post, which, you know, it's just it's symptomatic or emblematic of everything. It's all over the newspapers today after that speech. And some of the things that it says are Netanyahu's historic speech to Congress. It says Bibi goes nuclear, meaning that he really blew him away. He warns of an Iran bomb nightmare. It says Bam gets schooled by Goodwin, which means Obama gets schooled by one of their editorial writers. So Obama really, he's going to have a hard time recovering from this, because he, in contrast, looks so bad. And he and Kerry really, you know, really some of the other things that it says Bibi goes nuclear, countdown to a nightmare. Israel PM kill bad deal with Iran. O's, meaning Obama's pact would guarantee bombs. Thundering speech rouses Congress. Some of the highlights, it says, quotes, in this deadly game of thrones, there is no place for Israel or America. When it comes to ISIS and Iran, the enemy of your enemy is your enemy. The greatest danger facing our world is the marriage of militant Islam with nuclear weapons. We can't let that happen. Even if Israel has to stand alone, Israel will stand. This is a bad deal. It's a very bad deal. We're better off without it. So those are some of the quotes from Netanyahu's speech. And then, you know, you have, then there's an editorial that he was greeted just like a rock star. Polls, standing ovation, I mean politicians, standing ovations. And then you have a picture of Nancy Pelosi. Here, let's see if you can see this one. There's a picture of Nancy Pelosi, and it says, Sourpuss Pelosi near tears. Dems resent Israel's tone. You know, but actually a lot of the Democrats were there. There was about less than 50, I think, that actually didn't show up. The White House tried to get them all not to go. The vast majority of them did go. And so you just have sort of the arch liberals that didn't show up. And the Democrats that were in Congress were just as enthusiastic as the Republicans were listening to this speech and recognizing finally what's happening. And one of the biggest critics of the Obama administration when it comes to Iran is a Democrat, the New Jersey senator, what the heck's his name? Well, it'll come to me. But anyway, so oh well, so it really it was really quite an experience that took place yesterday, and I do think it was historic. I think that it kind of is a marker where the United States and Iran probably finally come to reality, because I think Kerry has been over there trying to keep Valerie Jarrett happy by coming up with, any deal was better than no deal, and boy, is that wrong. What a mistake. So I think when Netanyahu, to very much his credit, straightened them out, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Kerry's supposed to make, Kerry and Obama are supposed to sort of make some kind of pronouncement by the end of March as to what they've accomplished with the Iranians. So we'll see how that turns out. Okay, well, having said that, let's jump into some of our local politics and see what you think. Don't hesitate to call if you want to. And before I get started, I just want to say I want to thank my wife for all the help she gave me, giving me time to cut out the papers and whatever. So, a shout out to Sabina. And so anyway, like I say, call in if you want to. The first item that I wanted to talk about is David Collins gave our mayor sort of an enema on Sunday's paper. He says Finenzio better at running a campaign than the city, and of course, unfortunately, that's true because he's good at, like I say, he when you listen to him talk, the first paragraph that he says sounds like, oh, this guy sort of knows what he's talking about. The second paragraph that he speaks, then you sort of say, well, what's he really talking about? And by the third paragraph, you realize that it's all fluff, no substance. And that's kind of how Finenzio operates. And because, again, he has really no experience doing anything to speak of either. He should have really run for city council, and he should have taken the hard road rather than the easy road. And the people of New London should have insisted upon that, but they didn't. So we'll go ahead. Some of the things that David Collins says, it says, indeed, the mayor's hunker down plan, laying low after announcing he would not run again, seemed to work well as he deftly segued back to being a candidate just 7 months after declaring himself a lame duck. He has not proven himself to be so adept at governing in his first term, but he does seem to run a slick campaign. After all, the mayor, who time and time again has filled important city administration jobs with people who have no experience, has turned to professionals to run his re-election campaign, bringing in a campaign consulting firm. You remember that. I mean, it is kind of ironic. A good point that Collins is making is he does hire, newbies into all these positions that pay well and should really have people with experience. But when it comes to his campaign, his re-election campaign, he's brought in professional consultants. I guess their job is to see how much they can fool the voters of New London. Let's hope the voters of New London aren't fooled. It goes on to say that Finenzio worked very hard this winter, for instance, to keep up with the snowstorms, having weathered a lot of criticism last year for the city's snow cleanup effort. The mayor insulted the black community early in the first term. Remember the NAACP news conference on City Hall steps to complain about the mayor's firing of the first black firefighter hired in decades. And then the mayor has had his fair share of squabbles with unions in his first term, but he has come around putting union officials with bullhorns on the comfy seats at the front of the campaign bus. And yet there are many failings of the first term that won't go away. It is unlikely we are going to see any development at Fort Trumbull or progress on the city-owned Lighthouse Inn, which has been steadily deteriorating on the mayor's watch. Nothing will bring back the citizen who was killed on a routine trip to the trash transfer station because of negligence that is being carefully documented in lawsuits against the city. But the biggest first-term demon that could have the most powerful impact on the election is the police chief, who remains on paid suspension imposed by the mayor, a no-work program that has now dragged on for 6 months with no end in sight. Nice work if you can get it. The police chief, who is being paid in absentia, could be a powerful reminder of the badly managed government, like the steam from the leaking pipe that lingered in City Hall. Then he goes on to have some advice for at least at this point, Passero. He says, so far, the mayor seems to be out campaigning City Councilor Michael Passero, who will need a better strategy going forward than counting on the Finenzio haters to carry the day. To start with, he needs to slip the old guard label that Finenzio has already successfully hung around his neck. And I don't agree with that, by the way. And the I am not Finenzio campaign strategy is destined to fail for Passero. After all, Finenzio are already busy waging that one. In other words, Finenzio is already waging the I am not Finenzio campaign. In other words, he's trying to pretend that all the stuff that he did, was done by somebody else, more or less. I mean, he's trying to ignore everything in the past and wants you to look at the present and the future and see how, and forget about what he's done and all the. One of the things that's really going to be telling about Finenzio is what he comes in with a budget. On the first part of April, he has to present a budget to the city council, and it'll be interesting to see how he does it. I think I told you last week, I kind of expected him to come in with a very low budget, no increase or maybe a slight increase, because it's an election year, and that's what politicians do. But I'm told that no, that's not what he's going to do. He's going to come in looking for a substantial tax increase. So that combined with the Board of Ed request looks like the people of New London could be getting whacked again. So let's hope that doesn't happen, and let's hope that at least maybe we'll get a break in the election year with no new taxes. But it doesn't look that way right now. Another item that is sort of playing about a bit is the Secretary of State, mayoral, wants to change the requirements for registrar. And what she wants to do is that because they've had last election, she was embarrassed because Hartford screwed up the election. They didn't have the list available when the polls opened, and the polls opened late and that kind of thing. And then Bridgeport ran out of ballots the time before that. So she's in the reaction mode of trying to change how registrars are handled. She wanted to have a deal where the registrar would be a civil servant that would work for the clerk, and who would be required to have a 4-year college degree or 4 years experience doing elections, and then would be apolitical. Of course, that's what she's really trying to do is compensate for Hartford and Bridgeport by screwing up everything else, and the 169 other towns and cities in Connecticut that have registrars. Normally a registrar is, there's usually a Republican registrar and a Democrat registrar, and they're selected by the town committees, and they get paid sort of a part-time salary. In the case of New London, $26,000 a year, and they're expected to work about 20 hours a week, keep the office open 20 hours a week, and they usually do that by trading off. One guy has it today, and the other guy has it tomorrow, and they're both in on Wednesday or something like that. So you have that kind of a deal. So even the day's editorial, on the registrar situation thinks that Secretary of State Denise Merrill is overreacting, and I would say I would agree that that's an overreaction. We don't need that. We can keep the registrars alive and well and doing the job, and in New London they do pretty well. So we haven't had any big problems. That the voters actually encounter voting in New London. Okay. L&M has had about several different things going on over the last week. One of them was you might remember we talked about Dr. George Spracacci's letter a couple weeks ago talking about the morale at L&M, and he basically laid out a formula that said that they need to address it, and they need to cooperate with each other, and they need to get better. Well, then another doctor that's at L&M wrote another op-ed. Her name's Constantine A. Manthus, M-A-N-T-H-U-S, Manthus, I guess. And basically what she sort of concurs with Dr. George Spracacci. Basically what she says is I'll offer a fresh set of eyes to She's relatively new. She's been there a year. I'll offer a fresh set of eyes to complement Dr. George Spracacci's provocative letter, February 4th, to the medical staff at Lawrence Memorial Hospital. And then she goes on to say, is L&M in trouble? And she says the medical care there is great. She'd be happy to have her parents go there, but she does say the morale is bad. So then she goes on to say, so why does the admittedly poor morale exist? So the words are, why does the admittedly poor morale exist? First, healthcare is undergoing a revolution and nobody likes change. For a variety of reasons, many of our own making, physicians' independence has been increasingly arrested by MBAs, business people, and policymakers. Dr. Spracacci's letter is the capstone of the frustration born in part of a failure to lead. She goes on to say, each group, physicians, nurses, administrators, reside in bunkers of distrust, forgetting that ultimately patients and our own welfare hinges on the ability to cooperate. Rather than coalesce around common cause for the community, we seem to be needlessly polarized. Ultimately, member leaders from each bunker need to show through their actions that they can transcend petty grievances and their discomfort with change in order to focus on what they should all share, a commitment to the patients of southeastern Connecticut. Managers might consider visiting the hospital wards and doctors' offices regularly to ask a few questions, a few common sense questions, recognizing that L&M clinicians are often better able to address them than our external expensive consultants. And she goes on to say, physicians can and should assist in accompanying managers in this work. We need to accept that, for better or worse, medicine has changed. As more physicians become employees, it is all the more important that we help our managers understand what is the best interest of our patient. And she says, after a year working with the excellent professionals at L&M, I am confident that Dr. Spracacci's call to arms will provoke constructive change. One of the things that she's pointing out that I think is, a lot of this is actually driven by Obamacare. Obamacare is set up so that, basically, we've talked about it before, it causes hospitals to either join other groups like Bacchus joining the Hartford Hospital Group, or in the case of L&M sort of is doing its own group. It brought in Westerly Hospital, and it has the visiting nurses, and it has the L&M clinicians, and so basically what Obamacare does is, because of all the government requirements, it becomes more cost-effective to try to consolidate administration and a big hospital like L&M, and then basically you bring in all the physicians and make them employees. And once you make the physicians employees, then they have managers that they have to account to, and they got metrics that they got to make, and it's such a shame to see, you can see how medicine's gone in our country. Years ago, the doctor would come to the house with his little black bag, and then not so many years ago, you'd go to the doctor's office. It'd be an independent doctor, and there's still lots of those around, but a lot of them not. And you see the doctor, and they have their own business there, their own practice. And so they care about their patients because it's in their best interest to have satisfied customers. And then when you bring it into the hospital like you have under Obamacare, then basically all these doctors become employees, and there's many, many, many of them. And so the incentive for the private practitioner is able to enjoy the fruits of his labor. But in the case of an employee, he's going to get paid just about as much if he sees, 10 patients an hour as if he sees 5 patients an hour. So his incentive is probably not to go the extra mile to satisfy the customer, the patient. So it's kind of sad to see that. Then compounding it, you have the situation where the state of Connecticut is, it seems to me to be crazy, but the state of Connecticut's throwing big whopper, has already thrown big taxes on the hospitals, and now Malloy wants to throw yet more taxes on the hospitals. And basically what the hospitals are saying is that, you know, there's no way they can really compensate for these large tax increases that the state's putting on them, because they can't charge their customers more, by and large, because their customers are already under Medicare, Medicaid, and agreed upon insurance rates. So as Malloy puts taxes on them, they end up, you know, not being able to pass those costs along to their customers because the rates are already fixed. And so it really, because of catch-22. Some of what we're talking about here is that says paramedic care in southeastern Connecticut could be among the hospital services in jeopardy under Malloy's proposed 2-year state budget. Once upon a time, he said in his testimony, this is one of the hospital guys. Once upon a time, he said in his testimony, the hospital was able to absorb the loss. Not anymore. The hospital is in a challenged fiscal condition due to cuts in insurance reimbursements and the hospital receipts state tax already being the hospital receipts state tax. In other words, taxes on the money they make, already being imposed over the last 4 years. That is due to increase under the Malloy plan. The governor's budget would increase the gross receipts tax, the tax imposed on the hospital's patient care revenues, from this is statewide, from $349 million in the current fiscal year to $514 million annually. Not quite double, but that's a lot. The tax was originally enacted in 2012 as a way of leveraging federal dollars and returning the funds to the hospital. But guess what? Instead, it morphed into a true tax that, along with other cuts, is eroding hospitals and causing patient care and access to suffer. Malloy's budget would also reduce by more than $100 million per year the Medicaid reimbursement rates paid by the state to hospitals, as well as imposing new regulatory burdens. Hospitals cannot pass along the increased hospital tax to patients because a fixed reimbursement rate for Medicare and Medicaid and negotiated rates with insurers, essentially hospitals are being asked to provide the same services for less. Let's see what else we got here. Patients are now covered by Medicaid. The reimbursement rates for the program only covers 66% of the actual cost of the care. The tax increase and reimbursement cuts proposed by the governor's budget would reduce L&M's revenues by $9.6 million over the fiscal years 2016 and 17. At a time when the hospital can least afford it. L&M ended the last fiscal year in the red and is now working on a clinical sustainability initiative to do more with less and get back into the black. Now, of course, the problem here is that the more they have to cut back, the less, you know, if you have to go to the hospital or your relative has to go to the hospital or a loved one or something, I mean, if they keep cutting back, you know, there's not going to be much there to take care of the patients. I mean, it's, you know, if a nurse has to take care of twice as many patients as she used to, she's only going to do half as much for each one. You know, I mean, it only makes sense. It's you're limited by your own two hands. So you know, this is not going in the right direction. I don't know why the governor's coming down so hard on the hospitals. I mean, of all the places to go to look for money, I don't know why he would go to the hospitals. Hartford Healthcare, the parent of the William W. Backus Hospital in Norwich, is also predicting staff and service cuts if the budget proposal is adopted. The cuts proposed for hospitals are deeply troubling for us as care providers and major employers, and for the patients and families who rely on us, this lady says, who works for Hartford Healthcare. She said that 2 years ago, budget cuts of $111 million cause layoffs and service reductions. There is no doubt whatsoever that if adopted, the cuts being proposed would have a severe impact on our hospital's ability to serve as a community safety net. So I don't know. I don't get it. Okay, and here's another one. Yet another issue. It's a little bit related. And this one will affect you a little. Well, all these affect you directly. This will affect your tax bill. Lawrence Memorial Hospital is asking leaders of 6 local towns to help close the $500,000 annual deficit in its budget for paramedic services. The L&M coordinator of Emergency Medical Services and Paramedic Intercept Program said the hospital is hoping East Lyme, Groton, Ledyard, New London, Stonington, and Waterford will agree to contribute a total of $250,000 to $300,000 annually towards the paramedic program. The program has a $1.4 million annual operating budget, but only receives enough revenue from insurance reimbursements to cover about $900,000, with the rest covered by the hospital. Okay, just for your information, paramedics can perform some as compared to emergency medical technicians. Paramedics can perform some advanced types of medical care EMTs cannot, including starting IVs, cardiac monitoring, advanced airway opening procedures, and surgical interventions. Municipal leaders agree this is a valuable service that should be preserved, but are unsure about finding the funds in their towns and cities. So then they got a bunch of quotes from, Dan Stewart of Waterford said that the towns are working to develop some alternative solution to present to L&M based on the formula L&M has suggested that each town pay a different amount based on population and the number of calls it generates. Waterford would pay about $40,000, and then some for Ledyard and some for the other guys. And in the case of New London, Finenzio says that he's not going to do anything. Finenzio said that while he believes the city should help, he is opposed to a level of support based on population and number of calls. The city is already making a significant contribution to L&M by hosting the main hospital and other L&M facilities without being able to charge property taxes, Finenzio said. The hospital has suggested that based on its population and number of calls, the city would contribute $57,000 annually, which is a lot more than Waterford's $40,000. He said an amount he believes is too much. We have the lowest amount of taxpayer property and the least ability to pay, Finenzio said. We already subsidize L&M. You have to sort of, I agree with him on that. This is a tough nugget because how L&M is coming up short. We definitely, the cities and the towns want the paramedic services. They want they have one in Groton, they have one truck in Groton, one in New London, and then they have one that floats, and I don't think we really want to give those up. The hospital's saying they can't pay them based on the cuts by the governor, and so they're looking for the towns to put in some money, which means that it's going to come out of your taxes. I don't know what the right answer is. I think the governor really should not be taking money from the hospitals. If I was the governor, what I would do is I'm sure that the biggest single budget item the governor has is employees. As I recall, when we first instituted the income tax some 20 years ago, we had 1/3 the number of employees we have today. So we've tripled the number of employees we have, and it would seem to me that if you really are, it would seem to me the governor would go after the number of employees that he has to try to reduce his labor budget, either by attrition or whatever, and come up with some money that way. Because right now, does anybody really believe the state needs the number of employees that it has, that the state needs as many programs as it has? And then to take money from the hospitals, boy, does that seem like the wrong direction to go. But anyway, that's what we have going on. Okay, another issue, we're moving away from the hospitals for a minute. We'll talk about the Amistad a little bit. it turns out the Amistad's going to be moored in New London. New Haven, New Haven's pier where they had it moored has got silt in it, and so on low tide the ship is actually in the mud. Not a very good thing for a wooden ship or any ship, and so basically they're going to move the Amistad over to the Custom House Pier, actually where it was first moored when it came to this, when the real Amistad came to this country in 1836, I think it was. And so it's going to be here from, through the spring and summer, and it's going to participate in the events that are going to take place in the city. But unfortunately, it's not going to be able to sail. There's a number of, they don't have the crew, and they don't have some of the capital investment they need to be able to sail the ship and have it participate in that manner. So it's mostly going to be tied to the pier, and they're going to be able, people are going to be able to go aboard it and see it, and they're going to be able to have lectures and point out things on the pier, and so it should be nice. I'm kind of glad to see it here in New London. I think it just adds to the waterfront. And hopefully it'll add to the events that we're planning on the waterfront. So glad to see the Amistad come to New London. I don't know where it's going to end up. I don't know if it'll end up eventually in New Haven. Seems kind of where they had it in New Haven, it looked all by itself. It looks kind of an odd place to put it. Where in New London, it's right there on a regular pier, and it looks like, well, a ship belongs there. So we'll see. Another item that I think is really positive for the New London area is the Navy wants to accelerate their submarine program, the Virginia-class program. And what they want to do is it says Navy officials have said they will consider moving up the date for the start of the new Virginia-class submarine program that would allow boats to carry more firepower. About 20 Virginia-class submarines built jointly by EB and Newport News would have their hull lengthened by about 70 feet to accommodate so-called Virginia payload modules, allowing the subs to carry 28 more Tomahawk cruise missiles than the Virginia-class subs now under construction. 70 feet is a big extension. I mean, I would say those ships are probably somewhere in the neighborhood of probably a little less than 400 feet long. I don't know the exact amount, but if you add 70 feet to them, I mean, you're talking probably about 450. These are going to be big submarines, and they're going to be carrying a lot of missiles, and God knows we probably need them because, who knows what Iran's going to do, who knows what ISIS is going to do, who knows what Russia's going to do. They're over there terrorizing the Ukrainians, and God knows what will happen next. Maybe they'll go after the Estonians. It looks like Putin is trying to pull in all the surrounding. He wants to reestablish the old Soviet Union, and and he's being rather blatant about it. So it is not a good time to cut back on your defenses. So the move to increase to get the submarine program going faster is really good for our country, but it's also really good for New London because basically the New London County area, because it's going to bring a lot more jobs sooner to New London. I mean, these are, EB's a great employer, and as far as I'm concerned, these are great jobs, great for our economy and great for the area, and just a win-win for all of us. So I'm glad to see that happening, and I hope it actually comes to fruition. Another big positive that for downtown New London is Frontier plans to add 100 jobs in New London. They're going to put 100 people at that State Street address where they used to be, across the street from the Thames Club, I guess, and on the same side of State Street, but there's a little road that goes between them. And about half those downtown jobs will transfer from New Haven. And they're putting about $1 million into renovating that building, and they also are renovating the larger building that that AT&T abandoned. Okay, it says in addition to a brick building at 200 State Street, The Stanford-based Frontier owns a multi-storied space on Washington Street that serves as a New London served as its New London office. The nearly vacant building has been undergoing extensive renovations since before Frontier took it over, but the company so far has not announced what it's going to do there. But then they go on to say that local hires are part of the Frontier plan to take on 560 new employees across the state in the coming months. A substantial number, he added, will be veterans. Construction crews, sales and service technicians, U-verse support personnel are among the positions Frontier is looking to fill. So that's another big plus for for New London and for State Street. So some good things happening there. I'm glad to see it. Another item that came out of the City Council the other night, Monday, was the idea to have a, let's see, what do we call it? They want to have a pedestrian advisory committee. And I think what sort of initiated this one is the fact that, and I say it happened to me today, I had to go visit a place on Montauk Avenue, and part of some areas of the sidewalk were cleared up and you could walk on them, but other parts of the sidewalk had not been cleared, and so you ended up having to go off on a driveway or something, and then walk on the street on Montauk Avenue where there was a lot of traffic, especially down there at the end. So that was that's the kind of thing that's driving this, where basically people can't walk on the sidewalks when the snow's there. And one of the things that comes to my mind is that people that own the property that the sidewalk's in front of have the responsibility to clear that sidewalk. And what I would say is that what the city ought to do is, if it's not cleared after a reasonable period of time, the city ought to come in and clear it and put a bill right added to their taxes for the property owners that have that. And if it's a rental, the landlord can pass it along directly to his tenant, but nevertheless, that should take place. And maybe the landlord would be happy to pay the city to clear his sidewalk, but I think that if people ended up having to pay to have the city come in and clear their sidewalk, they would suddenly decide that maybe it's worth the effort themselves. So maybe you would see a little bit of a change in attitude there. But this sidewalk study group is supposed to look at the snow issue as well as other walkability issues in town. Mike Passero, Councilor Mike Passero, had proposed this. It says the committee proposed by Councilor Michael Passero and referred to the Council's Administration Committee would first be tasked with recommending a comprehensive plan directed at sidewalk snow removal in response to the current serious safety issue in the city created by the lack of sidewalk access due to inadequate snow removal. Passero's proposal calls for a 7-member committee made up of residents or business owners appointed by the City Council. The membership is expected to represent people with disabilities, senior citizens, property owners, business owners, neighborhood groups, and other organizations working to make New London a more walkable city. The Administration Committee is expected to discuss the Pedestrian Advisory Committee proposal at its next meeting on March 16th. So, I agree that I agree with Mike Passero that something needs to be done about the snow. And like I said, you heard my proposal, and if it's not done by the property owner, within a reasonable time, the city comes in and does it and charges them, and we can make sure that whatever they charge is enough to cover the cost, so that the other taxpayers don't end up with the burden. Okay, a couple other items that I just wanted to talk about is I'm still upset with the Board of Education budget. The 7% increase is way too much. I hope that the City Council will knock it back and I feel rather confident that if we see anything like more than a 5% increase in the budget, and maybe probably even if it's more than 3%, it's probably going to go to be petitioned and go to referendum, and then we'll have another big discussion as to when the referendum takes place. And I know that if the mayor puts it off to November, that'll be one more nail in his coffin, because it's disingenuous and a slap in the face to the voters to have a referendum on the budget when a good chunk of the budget's already been spent. So that cannot happen. So let's hope the budget comes in at a reasonable amount. Like I said, the mayor has to present the city budget and the Board of Ed budget to the city council the first part of June. So we'll be seeing relatively soon how that's shaping up. Another item on my list here is to talk about the Chief Ackley situation, but you already heard some David Collins words about that. That definitely is another nail in the coffin of the mayor. The sad part about it is he sort of got himself across the breakers on this one, because she filed a lawsuit against him for interfering with her job, and then within the 24 hours, the next day, he files a lawsuit against her, claiming that, or he puts her on a leave of absence, paid leave of absence, because he comes up with a number of little things that supposedly she did that he wants to remove her for cause on. And of course, the elephant in the room is that the police department collapsed under her rule as well as the mayor's. And if the mayor had more than enough justification to fire the chief of police for that happening, instead he picks out some picayune things, and it keeps on going. So it's really kind of hard to understand, why the mayor tolerates this kind of stuff. I don't get it. I do expect that, given the heat of the exposure that he's getting on this issue, that he'll probably try to do something to get it settled, as it should have been a long time ago. Another item, as the chairman of the New London Republican Town Committee, one thing I would like to see is a higher mayor pay. The mayor pay is not enough to bring on a regular basis, from one election to the next, the caliber of people that we might want to have run for mayor. If a person is a professional, and it would be nice, that's a plus for being a mayor, is that you're a professional person who's maybe been successful. It's likely that if they're a professional person with some experience, that they're going to be in a situation where their pay is going to be more than what the mayor pay is, and therefore they'd be in a situation where a professional like that would not be able to run for mayor. And so, the mayor ought to be making somewhat the same amount of money as the other people that work for him, like the chief of the police and, some of the other positions that we have. You have this school superintendent that's making like $190,000 a year, and the mayor's making $80,000. Now, I don't know. The school superintendent has a big job, but so does the mayor. And I'm not sure why you have that kind of a pay difference. I don't think the mayor should be getting $190,000, but I do think he should probably be getting about $120,000. So, if that were the case, we would be able to bring in more potential candidates from which we could select the best one to run for mayor. As I always say, I like to talk about Conn College's lack of contributions to the city. They give $12,500 to the city of New London and pay no property tax. They don't have to pay property tax because they're a not-for-profit organization. But like all these other colleges and towns, like Brown and Providence and Yale and New Haven and da-da-da, they all give a big chunk of money to the city that is actually taking care of them, with fire, police, and whatever else. And in our case, Conn College doesn't do squat, they really don't. And I really think that any person that works for Conn College ought to be embarrassed that they fail to make even a token contribution to our city. Let's see. It looks like we got about 5 minutes left here, so let's cover a couple things. One of the things we're going to have to probably go a little bit quickly through some of this, but the governor, he not only does he want to tax the hospitals, but he also wants to raise taxes on businesses. Let's say it's the tax plan sends wrong business signal is the headline. Right now, Connecticut's standing in the various state business climate rankings such as CNBC, Forbes, and the Business Insider, which last year ranked Connecticut 46th, 36th, and 35th respectively. Now the governor has proposed a tax increase that threatens to send the ranking lower, warns the Connecticut Business and Industry Association, the CBIA. Just looking at the details of this. The governor seeks to indefinitely extend the 20% surcharge on the corporation's tax, originally imposed to get the state through the last deficit crisis and originally set to expire 2 years ago, then this year. At the same time, the administration wants to limit the use of credits businesses can apply to counterbalance that tax. Governor Malloy is asking the legislature to limit the ability of companies to utilize prior year net operating losses to offset current corporate tax liabilities. And he would limit the use of tax credits that businesses can claim against corporations' tax to 35% next fiscal year, down from the current 70%. It once stood at 100%. So anyway, you see, I mean, you know, it just keeps unrolling. I mean, why is the governor doing that? I don't know. I mean, he's looking for money. In my mind, he's looking for money in all the wrong places. Adding taxes to hospitals, adding taxes to business is just going to lose jobs. And then you got another article here about the Department of Aging. The governor brought that one back. It's a $9 million deal. He makes, the whole story here is too long to talk about in the time we have left. But, you know, it's a big deal, a plum for Edith Prague and the other one now, I forget her name, who has it right now. Anyway, but it's another one of these deals. If the governor got rid of that and put it under the where it has been up until he resurrected it, he would save a lot of money and would not have a redundant Department of Aging. Let's see. Oh, another one. It's not enough that he wants to raise taxes on hospitals. He wants to raise taxes on business. Now he wants to raise taxes on you by having tolls on the Connecticut's roads. Connecticut, the tolls are nothing more than a tax on people. And the argument is well, people are driving through our state and they're not paying. Well, guess what? That's like 1% of the traffic. 99% of the traffic on the interstate highways, if you look, all Connecticut license plates. Just look at rush hour in the morning, rush hour in the evening. You know, these are all Connecticut people, and they're going to be paying this tax. And not only that, but it's going to be a big headache. Boy, we got to stop that one. And I know that Paul Formica is against it, and Andre Bumgardner, who's our state rep from the 39th district, or from the 41st district, is against it. Another item, we don't have a whole lot of time, but the Clinton email thing might have you confused. You might say, well, Hillary Clinton, when she's Secretary of State, only had, she didn't have a State Department email. Well, we're going gray. We'll talk about her email next time. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.